2022. I'm here on the booth of Joranalogue Audio Designs. How are you?
Hi Tom, I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine. It's the last booth for this year for me. How was Superbooth so far, or this year for you?
Yeah, it's great to see so many people again, meet old friends, see new faces. So great addition for us.
I saw your booth was always crowded with people, and now just before the end, it has a bit of room.
Yeah, you finally managed to find a quiet moment.
You're a company from
Belgium.
Is this here the Belgium quad?
Yes, we have the Polish-Belgian tent going on right here.
There's Clavis, there's Jacquemart.
Jacquemart, Scales Devices, Sinusoda, and us. So it's a great company.
Are you, let's say, are you a bit collaborating together, or are you exchanging in ideas, maybe, or because to see how the Belgium community is working on this side?
Yeah, so the nice thing about the Belgian brands is we all know each other quite well, and we all have our own little philosophy. So we each do things on our own way. So that means that our systems or our modules are quite complementary. So what we are all about is doing high-end analog, and Jacquemart's more focused on performance, and Clavis is more focused on digital innovation. So it's a very nice group we have together, and we will, you know, we talk to each other. We look to cooperate. Also, for example, here to have a shared half tent, let's say. So yeah, it's a great community we have in Belgium.
I read from you it's the 21st century analog synthesis made in Belgium. So you are focusing on analog synthesis.
Yeah, so that's. I think you get the concept of the brand from the tagline, and the whole goal with Joranalogue for me is to design modules that push analog technology further. And it's quite easy to say, like, oh yeah, if you want clean and precise, you need to go digital, and if you want warm and lush, you need to go analog. And I want to show that you can achieve all of that and even more just using purely analog technology, which has advanced as much or almost as much as digital technology in the past years.
Yeah, because you're saying now with you're trying to bring analog synthesis further. How challenging is this? Because we know that people are always, as you said, moving to digital if we want to explore granular synthesis, sampling, and so on. But I think at many developers, there's not real analog moving forward. This year with Chaos, which has a really nice analog oscillator, they're also moving forward in analog synthesis. So, what are you more interested in? What kind of sound, or let's say, what domain of analog synthesis?
Yeah, well, all of it really. So anything, as long as it is purely analog, it interests me. And it is indeed quite challenging, as you say. Also because most research in electronics nowadays is performed in the digital realm. So if you want to try and bring new techniques or approaches to the Eurorack platform, it can be challenging because you reach the limits of the analog technology quite quickly. Where certain things you can only do in digital might be impossible or very difficult to achieve in analog, and you won't find as much research information about it. So it's really a case of exploring and taking the time to, in a way, do our own research and trying to find things that haven't been done before. And the new modules, especially Delay 1, is another example of that, where we've really had to push the envelope of what people have been doing for the past 50 years.
What is the most hard thing to achieve? Because there's as a digital you can expand the memory, but it's not possible in analog. So where is the most challenging part of analog synthesis? Because I think the components are still almost the same as in the 70s, 80s, 90s. So
well, yes and no. So there have been quite some advances in the analog realm, and we're using the best or the most modern parts you can get. So that's a big part of it. But there's also new techniques, and even some techniques which have been pioneered in the digital realm will bring into analog and achieve improvements that way. But it is true that we're mostly working with existing building blocks like op-amps and VCAs and so on. But it's the way you put those building blocks together where the innovation lies. And that is translated into another level within the system itself. All our modules are designed to be building blocks, to be patch programming blocks. And you can achieve so much. That's also why there's so many sockets on them. You can achieve so much just by repatching things and using modules in different ways. For example, a filter can be an oscillator, an LFO, or a slew limiter can be an envelope. There's all this versatility in there. And that's, to me, just personally, is so exciting that there's always new possibilities to explore, and the more modules you add, it just grows the possibilities exponentially.
And with your vision that you are in analog synthesis, it has something to do with your background, or is it you was always interested in analog synthesis? Because I think there are many Eurorack companies who have a background in. They were already a developer in another company. So your background is you're a researcher, or you're educated musician, or
my background is I guess my background is this. So I started when I was a student doing vintage synth repair, and that led to I had 2 or 3 different people come to me with the same idea for a Eurorack module, and that became Switch 4, which is our performance switching and routing module. And when I had all these people come to me with essentially the same thing they were missing in their systems, I noticed, okay, there's demand for this. Let's build a module out of it. And I was already thinking for years at that point that I would release my own line of Eurorack modules.
A side question: what was the most difficult one to repair?
The most difficult module to design, that would be Step 8, which we are yet to release.
I mean, the most difficult vintage synth you repaired.
Oh,
in the past.
to repair. I recall there were a few ones. I can't really think of the model number, but I remember this like huge organ top divider kind of thing. I think it was a Cork, and it had so many faulty chips, and there was no way to actually measure which chips were faulty without desoldering all of them. So that was a nightmare, and the thing was very crusty and dirty inside.
I'm very happy that analog, all this technology has pushed forward and become smaller and not so crowded as in the past.
Yeah, so
Like you put it even on your modules in small size, super small size.
yeah, so we use SMT technology. Everything is very dense. Most of the modules have hundreds and hundreds of components inside because I'm doing so much inside.
So Joranalogue and DIY, that would be probably not
that's
possible.
not. Well, we do have the one DIY offering, and that's Test 3. But that has pre-soldered SMT parts, so there's only 11 through-hole parts you have to solder yourself. And that's also a bit of a strange one in the system because it's the only one that has a microcontroller in there, software running on it. But it's aimed at the DIY market and also other manufacturers. They're quite common to see them.
And you say you are from Belgium. You're manufacturing in Belgium, everything, or?
Yes. So everything is fully assembled in Belgium. That's from putting the SMT parts on the bare boards. Everything is automated, so automated pick and place. Reflow soldering, wave soldering for through-hole parts.
Is there something that it's you say a pro, that you have everything in your hands? Or?
Yeah, that's a part of it. there's also environmental reasons, and there's practical reasons. So we have 2 or 3 deliveries per week from our assembly house in Belgium. They drive up with their own van, and we have new modules. And they're not going to spend 2 weeks in transits coming from China or whatever. But it's also the fact that we can communicate with them very directly. We can actually go there, see what's going on. And it's the benefits to me are so massive that, you know, apart from being able to say, look, this is a purely Belgian product, from design up to manufacturing, testing, packing, there's also very good practical reasons why we do.
And how big is Joranalogue as company? Because it's hard to say always if you can watch videos. Is it a garage company, or is it only one or the
Yeah.
two? Or
That's the funny thing about Eurorack is that there's so many brands nowadays, and a lot of them are I'd say the vast majority of them are very passionate people doing the best they can. For us personally, the growth has been incredible the past few years, and it started from me doing everything I could except for the assembly, but design, testing, support, and so on. We now have 3 people, and at the assembly house, I believe we are at about like 4 full-time equivalents right now, assembling our modules. And of course, we also have an extensive dealer network who are working with us to show people the modules, to give them advice, and also to sell them, ship them to the end customer.
coming back to your company, your design philosophy. So, is it maybe possible in the future that you say, oh, we try maybe a more digital module, or you always still say, well, we will close this, no, we will not open this chapter, but we will stay at analog?
Well, it depends on your definition of digital. So nowadays, when people say digital, they mean software, they mean a microcontroller, or maybe programmable hardware like an FPGA. So digital nowadays means programming, essentially. If you look at our series, it's a combination of analog processing, but also discrete digital circuitry, like CMOS logic circuitry. And anything that has discrete steps will use something like that. For example, step 8 is full of that kind of digital circuitry. But the benefits of doing it in this old school way is the speed is incredible, and there's no software bugs or anything like that. The downside is, and that's something we've noticed now with step 8, we've had to delay it a little bit, is that it's very difficult to reiterate. You can't just issue a firmware update. Now, to answer your question about where the brand is going, I think we have a very strong concept right now within the Eurorack space, and it would simply not fit a brand to do something like that, which there are many brands who are doing, who have hybrid offerings, let's say, so they have analog modules, digital modules, both of them, and they're able to take advantage of the best of both technologies. For me personally, I just really like there's a strong appeal to me to having a fully analog system. And also designing analog is just way more interesting to me.
For you, just the appeal, or is it also sonically, or because I think digitally is on a level that we no longer say on the VA side. There are so amazing things that you not really hear it. It's now analog or digital. Is for you more the workflow or the handling of analog?
The main reason for me is just a personal preference as a designer, as an electronics engineer. But I do find that there seems to be something about analog circuitry. There always seems to be something about it. And in theory, you can achieve anything digitally, but in practice, we do find that there's always something something a little bit more about analog in some way, and that's also true for Delay 1, our new BBD module. Even though it is much cleaner than existing BBD offerings, it still has some of that BBD magic, some of that mojo, whatever you want to call it. There's still something there, and that's a great side benefit of sticking to this rigid philosophy of getting the most out of analog.
I personally see a lot of comments or that people change to digital when analog becomes too boring. So is this not for you a little the problem to see that too much developers just making the clones or classic things with a 3340 chip and so on?
Yeah, I recall we mentioned something similar like that earlier when we were talking outside, and it is, of course, it is very easy to clone something existing, and whether there's demand or not, or you know, that's all fine for me, what other people do. But for me, with Joranalogue, I want to show what's possible with analog, and that you can create something that just has endless possibility for exploration, and I literally mean endless. And for me, just coming here with, this is the biggest Joranalogue system we've ever assembled, 3 full rows, and this has really opened my eyes, because now I realize that we've actually built a system, and the things you can get out of it are, yeah, it's hard to explain for me even.
2022 now, we associate Joranalogue with modular. Do you have maybe any plans for the future to go maybe in the field of keyboards or maybe in something bigger, or it goes a bit outside of this modular range, or what do you think there? Is it possible?
That's a good question, and the reason why we use or we offer modular right now is that for me it's the best possible platform for innovation, because you have all these sockets, you can totally patch up things in and outputs, so it's for exploring analog synthesis is the best way to do it. But I do feel that there's a lot of room for innovation in other areas. So, you know, I can't really say, yeah, we're working on something or whatever, but it's definitely something we are very aware of. But for me, we need to make sure that we can provide something innovative if we do move beyond the Eurorack fields.
What I really like on your modules is the layout of the interfaces, and they are not too crowded, but they are very easy to use. Often you get, make noise. For example, I can get do a lot of things with make noise interfaces, for example, because you don't see what kind of feature it is or what kind of function it is. At your modules, I see this is the frequency, this is the audio, this is low, or I can see it.
My philosophy is that a musical instrument is, in the first place, a tool for making music. And of course, you need to provide a tool that's suited to the task. And if the task is being able to put an emotion into sounds, then yeah, it needs to be suited to that task. But it's also a tool for sound design, for dialing in what you want. And if you know what you want, this is such a beautiful system to do it with, because of all the options you have. And it's simply so important to me to know, when you know what you're doing, to achieve what you want to achieve. And otherwise, it's a very frustrating experience, I find. But of course, there's room for exploration.
An event like Superbooth is, or all these modular meetings, we are over the world everywhere, from in Belgium and Netherlands. I think there you go to these events to meet your community or your customers, to show you, but it's also for new products. you have also something new for Superbooth, right? New modules that you showed, that you premiere here.
Yes.
And I think you go also a bit now in the effect side.
Yeah. Well, we started off with very much with utility modules like switch for, compare, select to. Then we moved on to sound generation processing with filter 8, generate 3, control stuff with step 8, also contour 1 is very much in that realm. So it's very much looking at one side we have an existing series, how can we expand on that series, but also what's missing in the general Eurorack market.
It's like, let's say, features or modules that I want to have because they are not on the market, or do you think it's more, I want to have a complete system for my brand?
It's both, and I think you can have both.
Because this looks already your system, it looks like a complete system, almost.
Yes, yes, and again, I'm amazed that, just so happy to see this case here.
And for a Superbooth, you have how many new modules?
We have Delay 1, which is our new BBD module, and it's a great addition to the series because it really adds space. You know, once you have a delay, even though it's quite a short delay, you get chorus, you get flanger, you get short echoes, you get comb filtering, you get spring reverb type sounds even.
So it's definitely not yet another simple delay. No, that's what I not expect from Joranalogue.
No, but because again, there's so many on the market already, and especially digital offerings. So with Delay 1, the goal for me was to get the best possible performance out of the analog BBD technology, which is really, if you look at analog delays, there's only a couple of options, BBD or tape delay. Having tape delay in a Eurorack system
Challenging.
has practical challenges, exactly.
There's one module available, and it's you need to
Yes.
change the tape.
Yes. I've seen that one. It's amazing to me, but it takes up quite some space, of course.
And so, what are the key features of the Delay 1? So, how does it sound?
Yeah. Let's. Car plus strong patch going on now, and car plus strong is an interesting synthesis technique where you use the delay line to create string type sounds. So what I'm doing here, and I also have some feed. What I'm doing is I'm using the dedicated plug inputs, and this will generate a short enveloped noise burst. And that's built into the module. So all you need is a standard trigger pulse into the plug input, and it sends the, I'll use a dry wet output rather, just short noise bursts. What happens is when those bursts go through the delay line and then are fed back by the feedback parameter back into the delay line, they go round and round and round, and you get string type sounds. So I'll turn up the blend, and the frequency of the string sounds is controlled by the length of the delay time, so the amount of time. This damping parameter is a filter in the feedback loop, and this can be switched between a low pass or a high pass filter. That allows you to select the frequencies that are being fed back. This
definitely not the biggest, epic, longest delay in a short one that can be then used as counter strong map.
Yes, exactly. So the delay range by default is 1 millisecond to 50 milliseconds. And that's really where I focused, because that's where BBDs really shine, with short delays. There's many applications for short delays. I even found that it's much more important to have very short delay rather than long delay for most applications, and especially a big difference between the two. So 50 to 1 milliseconds, that's a 50 to 1 ratio, which gives you a lot of modulation range to move between. And that took a lot of innovation to achieve this kind of performance. So one of the things I did was increase the clock frequency of the BBD. So BBD always has to be driven by a high frequency clock signal. And the signal on many modules will be allowed to go into the audible range in order to get long delay times. On delay 1, by default, the delay time will never go below, the delay clock frequency will never go below 20 kilohertz. So you'll never hear the high-pitched whine. And the top end is 1 megahertz, which is about 5 to 10 times faster than BBDs are normally clocked at. So that meant totally redesigning the way BBDs have been driven for decades. But it allows me to get such a crisp sound out of a chip that everyone considers to sound like quite crappy. That for me was a personal challenge, to get this level of high fidelity out of BBD, but it also means the module fits within the system very well, which is all about high fidelity, which is all about precision and so on.
And besides the delay 1, you have other modules for Superbooth, or more modules that you have finished?
Yes, to the right we have Pivot 2. The funny thing about Pivot 2 is that it's a small module, 4 HP, quite simple. It allows you to route 2 effects via our synth return pairs in series, parallel or reverse series, or even anything in between those, just by turning the knob. And here we have our main input, main output. Quite simple. There's a lot of technology behind it. It's like a bunch of VCAs controlled by the one knob. It's something you could in theory patch up, but you need a lot of modules, and now it's in this small form factor. What we found is that a lot of people were waiting for something to come on the market, but it simply didn't exist yet. So that's why this one will be very exciting to see what people will do with it, as well as delay 1.
And I see the step 8 is becoming a finished product.
Yes, so step 8, the story with that one is that we showed it at last Superbooth half a year ago. So personally, I felt the design was at a point where I was quite happy with it. But when I had the testers look at it, our testing panel, they had a lot of very good ideas. And that led me to make the decision to delay the product, work on the design again. And now the versatility has grown so much that it's even like twice as good, I think, a module. And it was already super versatile. It's a sequencer, it's a sequential switch, it's an 8-stage analog shift register. It does track and hold, sound plan holds, polyphonic control. I've wave shaping. I keep forgetting applications for it. And the idea with that one was to look at. There's a big family of modules. As I mentioned, it's a sequential switch, sequencer, and so on. So a big family of modules that have quite. If you look at the circuitry, there's commonalities. So I set out to make a module that can achieve all of those functionalities just by having a smart circuit and some switches to select the different modes. And that was step 8. The problem with having so much versatility is that the circuit is very complicated. There's testing it as quite involved because you know, there's so many applications, people need to test them all and even find new ones. And there's no microcontroller in there, there's no software running in it. It's all CMOS logic driving everything. So that also means redesigning the hardware when I want to change things, and that set us back 3 months.
So we know what module was the most challenging one so far for
Step 8, definitely, yeah. Step 8, and then number 2 would be Contour 1, which was, you wouldn't expect it, but that was incredibly difficult to get just right as well. But yeah, Step 8 definitely so far the most challenging, but also most worth it, because it adds to the system finally a way to control everything.
Okay.
And this one we expect to have available within the next few months. That's our focus right now, to get that into people's hands and see what crazy things they come up with.
And then later the delay.
Yeah, so we have Pivot coming afterwards, and then Delay 1 by the end of the year.
Okay. So you're full of work until this.
We are definitely still busy because we keep producing the entire series continually, and people keep buying them, playing with them, and we keep producing them. We have a lot of parts to keep making them.
So no chip prices so far, no.
They're pretty good, yeah.
That's good to hear. So delivery should be normal.
Yeah, so that's also part of the brand philosophy, is that we want to have as many people as possible experience the power of a fully analog system. That's why we want to make sure our modules are priced reasonably, available continually through a worldwide extensive dealer network, and having lots of parts and being able to make modules when people want them.
Okay, then I wish you good luck for this year, the 2022. It looks like you have tons to do.
We do.
And many people are waiting for the step 8 and delay 1. So big thanks for making this interview. And then I wish you good luck for this year and for the last minutes of Superbooth 22, because we are really at the end and it's still again packed with people here. So
Stays busy.
big thanks and hope to see you again very soon.
Great to see you,
Bye.
Tom. Cheers.